This made my brain explode the first time I kind of figured it out. Non-conference play predicts tournament success better than conference play does. I'll say that again. The first 6 weeks of the season does a better job of telling you who's going to go deep in the NCAA tournament than the next 2.5 months that you're about to watch. It just does. It's just, that's the way, that's what it is. And I'm sorry to have to, if you're like, no, there's no way, like how you're playing going into the tournament should be like the most, that's just not what it is. Sorry. Like, you know what made UConn great last year? They were 4 seed, by the way, in the NCAA tournament. You know what made UConn great last year? They covered every non-conference game they ever played. All of them. They never didn't cover. And they also covered every game in the NCAA tournament. They also won all of them, by the way. So like, yeah, that's what it is. So to your point, like I have a bunch of I think non-conference play is critical in evaluating these teams. I think it's way more important, aside from injuries, than what's happening right now. I think it's way more important. And that sounds stupid and nuts, but that's what it is. That's what it is.
UConn right now are the undisputed favorite. They have won 14 in a row. They are the defending champions. And now really the debate is whether or not this team is better than last year's team because of how good they are playing. Obviously, Purdue lost over the weekend. Houston has lost some games along the way, and UConn just continues to get better and better. They just beat the number 4 team in the country, 81-53. When you look at UConn, you've said a couple times throughout the show, there are really like only 3 or 4 teams as of right now that you think could win the national title. Certainly Connecticut is one of them. Is there an area where like you pause with Connecticut? Are there causes for concerns with you that maybe, would concern you from buying into this team, just like going all in as we head into March Madness?
Yes, there is to a certain extent. But I want to start by just really emphasizing the point that you made. I think, look, it's February 20th. There's a lot of time left. But man, if we were closer, it really looks to me like it's them and that's it, and there's no one else. It really is starting to look like that, which concerns me as a bettor because it's not a good betting opportunity. The market has them as the best. I have them as the best. Then there's no bet. Like, there's no bet to make. And be like, well, what about some other teams? I don't see any other teams. Like, there's we'll get to one in the next region that I think is interesting. There's a couple where it's like, well, it's close and maybe they get somewhere. That's a lame tournament then from a betting standpoint. The reason UConn was so fun last year and profitable for so many people, and it's a big miss by me. Like I liked UCLA and I didn't like them. They both made sense. There were 2 doors and I walked through the stupid one and I didn't walk through the one of the team that won. But the thing that made them great last year as a betting opportunity is they didn't play well in conference play. They were a 4 seed. They were not rated as well as they're rated right now. And so the market, and they hadn't won anything yet, and their coach had flamed out 2 times in the tournament. If you could really have gotten onto them and gotten off the fact that Hurley had lost, which I couldn't, then there was a lot of money to be made on them. The 20-25 to 1 going into the tournament. I mean, God, everybody gets eliminated in the first weekend. They were still a good price to win. And then in the Final Four, they were, I think, pretty obviously the winner. Even with 4 teams remaining, they were the team people were going to like the most. And they were rated like that. And this isn't like that at all. Everyone's on this. And I mean, everyone's on this, like the price is really low. So like, I agree. They look amazing. It's not just, I watched the Marquette game and look, you catch the right team on the right game. You're going to think every team can win the national championship if you catch them on the right game. And that was a great game to catch UConn on because they just bulldozed Marquette, ran them out of the gym in 18 minutes, really like compelling stuff. But you look at them on a sheet of paper, look, we did Purdue earlier. I said I kind of eliminated them for like they didn't pass kind of one of the criteria that I have. Houston does, but look, I think it's okay to be concerned about what you're going to get from Houston in the tournament. We get to this team. We did some other teams where it's like, well, they're not there yet, but maybe they could be. We get to this team. There's no con. There's no, which they're UConn. I guess that makes sense. It's all pros. It's all like I'm in.
Pro con.
It's all they pass every test. Pros and cons, right? It's all positive. On a sheet of paper, they look like the best. They look like the winner. And the problem is the market thinks that too. And so like, even no matter how much I love them, and if the tournament started today, I would pick them in every bracket and I would pick no one else. And I don't know if I would bet them to win at this price, but I think about it. And if, depending on the draw, maybe I would. but that's like, people be like, wow, that's like a really confident opinion. That must be a good betting opportunity. This is a terrible betting opportunity. The team that the market loves is the right team. That's a terrible betting opportunity. Like, you want the market to be like heavy on the Ravens. Sorry, PJ, to bring this up again. And you get to come in and play Mahomes at a big price. That's a great betting opportunity. You get to bet Patrick Mahomes when nobody likes him. That's a really good betting opportunity. This is the team we all love. And they're like 4-1. That sucks. That's really bad. That's a really bad betting opportunity. I think my biggest thing with UConn this next month is they're on more of a tightrope than I think people would expect. So here's what I mean by that. I think if they don't play great, a lot of people will still be like, nah, like they're still really good. Like they can do it. Like even if they just play okay down the stretch, maybe they play as like the 15th best team in the country or the 10th best team in the country, whatever. But I said something earlier and I meant it because it bears out historically that you do not get worse over the balance of a season and win worse than you were the year before. So if you are at a certain level, and it doesn't matter if you won the title, it doesn't matter if you made the tournament, anything. If you were at a certain level and then the next year you are worse, you do not win. It does not happen. You can be like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit worse. That's about as like good as it's gotten for some teams. Like you're the second best team and then you're the third best team or something like that. Like that's a really, really small amount that you're worse. You may not even really be worse. It's just like really, really, really minute. But like you don't be worse and win. Like this is a staircase that goes up. And so if they kind of like punt some games here done, and they're playing as well as they've ever played at this exact moment, like let's say they lose tonight and then they lose like 2 more going into conference play. It's a pretty small amount of it's a pretty small margin for error. They'll be worse than last year's team. And I'll be out, all the way out at that point. Teams don't do that. Like in order for this to work, they have to be at this level. That's my biggest concern. If they're not at this level entering the tournament, I'm out. Historically, teams don't do this. And I don't care how bad the talent pool is. Be like, well, they're worse, but like, look at the other teams. I'm like, I am a student of history in these situations. And yeah, like I'll get burned sometimes by teams. But a lot of times when I get burned, it's like hubris. Like there's a team that makes sense and I ignore them. If UConn is way worse than last year's team entering the tournament, then like they should be ignored. Like it is a historical outlier. It's not something that I'm just ignoring because I'm prideful or a moron or whatever. Like they would actually make no sense in that case. So what's their biggest problem? Their biggest problem is they're in the shadow of last year's team, and they have to be even better to probably be a team that can win. Right now they are, and it looks great. There's no guarantee that a month from now that's going to be what it is. The way I would describe the Illini is I don't think they're a winner, and I don't really think they're ever a winner, but I think they're in the next tier of like, if you advance them to win the region, maybe make the final. That's kind of weird. It just depends on like who wins the other region, I guess. But like to win 4 games and be confident that this team could win 4 games, they would be on a short list for me of teams that I would be really interested in to accomplish that. And so that'll depend on where they get drawn in, how well do they play down the stretch, and what does their seed end up being? How does the market feel about them? Like if they get white hot, the cat's out of the bag, then you're probably not betting them to win the region anymore. If they stay like this 4-5 won't be a top 2 or 3 pick in the region to win odds wise, then I think they're really, really interesting. And on a sheet of paper, they look interesting. When you watch them, I think they're pretty interesting. Jake would, watch them more than anybody. I think he would probably agree with that. The other thing I want to do real quick is I think there might be an idea of like, oh, well, like you said the Big Ten, like they've been a disaster in the tournament. And so I think people might have a tendency to group teams like Purdue and Illinois together in terms of like failure in the tournament recently. I would disagree with that really, really strongly. And I would just say like context and detail matters. So like Purdue loses loses to Fairleigh Dickinson. They lose to North Texas. Like they lose to St. Peter's in the second weekend of the tournament. Like I think I'm saying these names like derogatory. Like
Arkansas,
just
Little
to
Rock.
emphasize like think about it. Like really, yeah. I mean, forever ago there was a double overtime game to Little Rock and Chris Beard. Like it's just like those are unconscionable losses. Okay, Illini. Who have they lost to the last 3 years in the tournament? In an 8-9, they lose to Eric Musselman, who's like been one of the great tournament coaches of the last back-to-back regional finals, wins a ton of tournament games. Like, yeah, like would have been great to win. That's not a bad loss. Like Arkansas went on to beat a 1 seed after that. Like, that's pretty good. They lost to a crazy underseeded Houston. Like, this is the start of the Houston run. Houston's a 5 or a 4, and they played in the 4-5 second round game. Like, is that a bad loss? They lost to Loyola Chicago, who was like the 8th best team in the tournament. They were just an 8-9 game. Like, these are very explainable losses. None of those are bad. None of those are like, oh my God, how did you lose? The Loyola one hurts because you're a 1 seed, you're a favorite in the game. A lot of people like Loyola in that game. Like, you look at those 3 and you look at Painter's stuff. I mean, it's a different sports almost. I mean, it's like not even close the difference in competition. So, like, I'm way more willing to give the Illini a pass on those games.
Just wanted to give my thoughts on Bama just because I watch every game. It's the team I know the best. It's where I went to school. They are the definition of a paper tiger, Ken. I know you use that term a lot. People will hear it a lot over the next 3 weeks, a month. I mean, this is just your quintessential number 1 offense in the country, number 74 on defense. You look at their resume this season, they have not been able to win a game like against a really good team away from Tuscaloosa. Their non-conference schedule was really hard. They played against Purdue. They played against Arizona. They played against Creighton. They played all those teams tough for a half, and they couldn't close. Then they lost against Clemson at home. They've lost at Tennessee. They lost against Auburn. So I know their odds are like 18-1 to win it all. Their offense is really, really good. The job that Nate Oates has done this season is just proven that like he's one of the top coaches in the country. They were the number 1 overall team last year heading into the tournament, lost 5 of their top 6 scorers, lost his top 3 assistant coaches. And now you wake up on February 20th, they play Florida tomorrow, and they have a chance to win another SEC regular season title. He's done a great job. But again, they just don't play enough defense. They don't have enough size either. And Ken, what really hurt them was Charles Bediako was their 7-footer from last season. We knew Brandon Miller was going to leave. We knew Noah Clowney was going to leave. We knew Javon Quinterly was probably going to leave too. But Bediako was really the guy that like this year's team is missing. They need a rim protector. They need a center that doesn't foul. They need a guy that can rebound, and they just don't have that this year. So Bama is the 3 seed that teams want to see in their region. They're going to score a lot, but they're not going to play a lot of defense, and wouldn't shock me at all if they lose in the first weekend. So I am very much looking forward to fading them in the tournament. It's going to pay me a little bit, but again, definition of a paper tiger, Ken. Definition. All offense, no defense. I had 3 friends send me a tweet this morning, Ken, that got them all excited. @_Nick Kelly tweeted this out. He covers Alabama sports. He said there have only been 3 teams since 1999, according to Ken Palm, that have had an adjusted offensive efficiency of 127.1 or higher, which Bama currently has. That would be Duke in 99, Wisconsin in 2015, and Villanova in 2018.
Oh, yeah.
None of those
Villanova's like the most.
Yeah,
they're like the historic one. They're like the best one ever, right? Is that Villanova team with Jalen Brunson? Yeah,
those Villanova teams.
So the idea is like so Alabama, they're next. That's your idea. Like, they're the next one. Yeah,
because all 3 of those
teams.
To
mention there. Right?
Yes.
All those teams defended at an incredibly high level. Villanova was one of the best defensive teams in the tournament. They were the best team. They were literally the best team. They also won the national title. They were also like a 10-point favorite in the national championship game. So the offense was great, and the defense was also really good. Like, that also happened.